What is up, Texas A&M fans? It's your old friend IndyCar Timm here with the Texas A&M Aggies Daily Blitz. What a day on Saturday. We had Aggies versus Aggies. It's always weird. I know it happens. It happens. Not frequently, but sometimes. But it's still weird. And I love it for the TV announcers or the radio announcers who can't just say Aggies because then no one knows what the hell they're talking about. So it forces them to go with Texas A&M or with Utah State. But it's funny when they slip and say Aggies and catch themselves and things like that. But it happens. Anyway, interesting day. Fun day at Kyle Field on Saturday. As Marcel Reed throws for 3 touchdown passes and ran for another before he had to leave the game late in the third quarter with an injury. As the number 19 Aggies of Texas A&M rolled to a 44-22 victory over the Aggies of Utah State on Saturday at Kyle Field. And you wonder, at the point of the game that it was, Reed was probably coming out of the game anyway. I know the announcers had mentioned that Miles O'Neal, I think it was a sideline reporter, had mentioned Miles O'Neal was already warming up on the sideline before that. Before the Reed injury. So he was probably coming out of the game anyway, but now you wonder if it wasn't maybe a play too late. Reed threw for 220 yards. He had a 3 touchdown passes, 34 yards, 12 yards, and 8 yards before he left with about 4 minutes left in the third. He fell awkwardly after getting hit by a defender. He walked off the field under his own power. He got checked out in the medical tent, spent some time in the medical tent before he went to the locker room. And he did jog to the locker room, so that's somewhat encouraging. There was no update that I could find on his condition after the game. So no news is good news until we hear something. The Aggies of Texas A&M, look, I'm doing it already, led by 1 late in the first quarter before scoring 23 straight points to take a 30-6 halftime lead into the locker room. Reed had a 1-yard scoring run and a 12-yard touchdown pass in that span to help Texas A&M pull away. Maybe the biggest impressive part for me on Saturday was the Aggies' defense, especially during that stretch where they dominated. Cassius House sacked Bryson Barnes 3 straight plays, which I've never seen at any level of football, to basically force a punt in the second quarter all by himself. It was an impressive stretch of plays for Barnes. It was fun to watch. I think they said that the last time that happened was in the 2015 Holiday Bowl, Wisconsin against Southern Cal. Jack Sitchie, I believe, was the player for Wisconsin that did that against Southern Cal in the 2015 Holiday Bowl. So it was kind of fun to watch and be a part of watching it on TV. Barnes ended with 169 yards passing, 2 touchdowns for Utah State, but he was sacked 6 times and hit 6 more times. And he kind of looked like it. You could tell. You could tell he was rattled a little bit. KC Concepcion had another big game for Texas A&M on Saturday after last week's game where he scored a touchdown on a punt return and had a touchdown catch in his debut for Texas A&M after transferring over from NC State. He had 6 catches for 73 yards and 2 touchdowns on Saturday. His second touchdown came on an 8-yard catch that extended the lead 37-14 with about 6 minutes left in the third quarter. Mario Craver, another transfer in his first year at Texas A&M, had 114 yards receiving. He was highly impressive on Saturday, including a touchdown. He grabbed 2 touchdown catches last week. So the transfers for Texas A&M showing up and showing out. Congratulations to Mike Elko and his staff and his recruiting staff and his transfer staff. I don't know if they're different. But yes, things looking up for the Aggies. I was a little concerned last week. Wasn't highly impressed last week against UTSA. I know it was a 42-24 win. I know they pulled away late. I just wasn't impressed with the early part of the game against UTSA. And likewise, I wasn't impressed in the early part of this game against Utah State. I think Utah State's a better opponent than UTSA. And I know you'll have your real test next week at Notre Dame. That will be the true test, nationally televised, 6:30 p.m. on Peacock and NBC. But I just, and this has kind of been my complaint for the Aggies for years, under a lot of different staffs and with a lot of different players. Slow starts. They never seem to get off to a fast start. They seem to play down to the level of their competition early in games before they catch on. Sometimes they're not able to pull away. So that's one of the many little nitpicking complaints that I could probably have for the Aggies this season, last season, and going back, I don't know, since Jimbo Fisher started. Was that 2017, 2018? Aggies back up. Aggies of Texas A&M back up. Miles O'Neal threw for 99 yards. He had a 72-yard touchdown pass after Reed left the game. For Utah State, Barnes, their quarterback, was under constant pressure all day. He didn't have time to do anything. So his offensive line is going to have to be much better for them to compete and get back on track next week in their game. The Aggies' run defense was a lot better this week, I thought, than it was in the opener. Texas A&M allowed UTSA to rush for 203 yards on Saturday at Kyle Field against Utah State. 78 yards on the ground. So much improvement for that unit on the field at Kyle Field for Texas A&M, I thought, on Saturday. Of course, next week, it is number 9 Notre Dame at Notre Dame. Huge test. We will have plenty to talk about that in the coming week before the game right here on the Texas A&M Aggies Daily Blitz on FanStream Sports. I appreciate you guys popping in here with us. Have a happy Saturday. Have a happy Sunday. Have a great weekend. Watch some NFL and sink in and soak up this Texas A&M Aggies win, 44-22 over Utah State. Big game for KC Concepcion. And think the good thought for Marcel Reed. Pretty sure he'll be okay, but I haven't seen anything official. It'll probably come out after I post this show, of course, as all the good stuff does. But we will talk about him, Concepcion, and more Aggies this week ahead of Notre Dame. Until then, boys and girls, we'll see you.